Story 1. When you stop replaying memories and start dreaming about your future without them, that is when you have truly moved on. Story 2. Honestly, you no longer feel emotionally attached in any way to what is going on with their life. You can see that they are living happily in a great relationship, and it does not faze you one bit. You might even be happy for them. That is what it was for me. Story 3. When you stop rehearsing imaginary arguments with them and start using that energy to win real arguments with your boss instead. Story 4. When they become so ordinary to you like other people, and you do not feel pain, hate, or love when you see them. Story 5. Who? What ex? Oh yeah, her. I never think about her. My life has been so amazing since I moved on. Story 6. You forget everything about them except the traumatic things that may have happened. I can still recall bad things that happened to me 10 years ago with my ex, but I cannot tell you one positive thing about them or anything we did together. Story 7. When someone texts you unexpectedly, instead of feeling happy, you feel annoyed that they have not moved on. Story 8. Thinking about her from time to time and hoping she is doing okay without feeling the urge to get back together. Story 9. When you can love your ex without judgment and hypocrisy. When you can genuinely wish for their benefit because you are free and want to share that freedom with others. When thoughts of your ex no longer cause pain from what happened to you, but instead bring love and compassion for your ex. That is how you know. Story 10. You catch up after many years of not being physically intimate with them and realize they are actually quite foolish when your judgment is not clouded by hormones. They also ask to be set up with your friends, and you do not want to arrange it, not because you are jealous, but because you care about your friends too much to do that to them. When you think about all of the people you have dated, you literally forget to include them in your mental list. Story 11. You stop thinking, oh, this would be a nice gift for them, whenever you see something they would like in the store. Story 12. You forget they exist sometimes. You forget many things about them. You do not check their social media or reach out. You would react the same whether they are doing badly or well in life. The idea that you ever dated feels strange, as if it was in a different life. Story 13. Indifference. Zero emotion. My ex was diagnosed with cancer, and I visited him when he was in the hospital. After each visit, I would call my friend and ask her for a mental check-in. How did I sound? Normal or attached? I cared for him as someone who was going through cancer, but not in any romantic way. Story 14. When you suddenly realize they are not part of your thoughts anymore, they are fading into the past and nothing haunts you anymore. Story 15. When you stop crying when you think of the breakup. Or in special cases, when it is on and off until it is ultimately over, you stop crying after the second or third breakup. Story 16. The pain is gone. I don't think about them every day. If I saw him with another woman, it would not faze me at all. I have moved on to someone new, and I am happy. If I were ever single again, I still would not go back. Story 17. You look at photos of you together and feel nothing. Then throw the photos away so your new partner does not feel uncomfortable about you having them, and it does not bother you to do so. Story 18. I do not ever think of them, and it is hard to recall specific details about them. No news about them, good or bad, seems to have an impact. Story 19. Somewhat curious but indifferent. The thought of her does not change my mood. I hope she does well in life. I am just glad we are not together anymore. I was a wreck when we broke up due to infidelity. Knowing where I was then and comparing it to now, it is obvious that I have moved on completely. Story 20. Funny. I don't remember any ex-girlfriend's birthdays, including my ex-wife's. Also, if someone tells you about running into one, your only feeling is, good for them, hope they are well. Story 21. When you no longer feel attached and crave their presence or attention. My ex was amazing, and it took me a while to stop constantly thinking about what ifs. Story 22. Like others have said, I am not thinking of them or wanting to reach out to them. Being with someone else does not bother me. Story 23. Deleted every single trace of her from my phone and went at least a week without thinking about us together. After that, I knew it was over and just did not care anymore. Story 24. You can logically compare and contrast healthy and unhealthy behaviors that each of you brought to the relationship and how to improve yourself for the next one. Story 25. When you wake up one day and think to yourself, why did I care about that in the first place? Story 26. One day I woke up and realized I was much better off. Even though I loved them and still think highly of them, who I am and the way I felt in that relationship was not great. Then one day it all clicked. I was better off. Story 27. When you can let go of the whole, hey, no big deal, we set you up to burn in your truck. No big deal. Best of luck now. Yeah, that part is still a little sticky, isn't it? Story 28. Assuming it was not an abusive relationship, being able to laugh at things that once made you feel negative emotions is important. Story 29. When the feeling you had for them wears off and they are as normal as any other human on this planet, an early sign is that when something significant happens in your life, you do not have the desire to share it with them. Story 30. Or is it when they finally call off the Tint Mafia and the people conducting psychological operations and hacking your phone call her off? It's enough. It's not funny or helpful. Story 31. When the idea of getting back together with them feels like a nightmare rather than a dream come true. Story 32. Someone mentions their first name and your first reaction is, who? Because you do not immediately recognize them. I had friends who referred to my ex as your girlfriend, even years after we broke up. It created an awkward social situation a few times when I responded, my what now? Oh, my ex. Story 33. When you walk alone, you do not think about the time you spent with them holding their hand and going to places. Story 34. No longer wanting to confront the man you caught her with. He can still go away. Story 35. I do not miss her anymore, even though we saw her outside. That is a sign showing me that I can really move on from her. We can live without her based on your mindset. Moreover, do not live in the past. It is a big deal. People cannot confront past feelings like missing good memories from the moments we used to have. Story 36. Indifference is the opposite of love. I was truly not indifferent when I finally got there. Life is good. Story 37. Idealization fading away. Realizing the reality of the relationship and coming to terms with the fact that they were not the one for you. Story 38. Not remembering the good or bad memories anymore. Moving on completely, barely remembering their face. When you look back during that time, it is no longer, oh, I remember this relationship, but, oh, I remember how I was or how life was during that time. They are no longer the main character in the story of that timeline. Story 39. So, when you love someone, the love is always going to be there. It just changes form. What I have noticed to be true in my experience is that you recognize it has ceased to matter in the same way. Yes, the love was there. Yes, it might still be present somehow, some way, but not as a central point of the story and not as a pivotal element. I think it is the recognition of the importance without allowing the continuity of that importance. Story 40. I don't know if there is one. Nothing could compare to you. Story 41. When you see them and you don't recognize them as the person you were with for all those years. When my wife and I separated, it took her 2 years to move out properly. But when she finally did and I could move on, she stopped being my wife and was just my son's mother. Story 42. Married for 12 years, had children, and then divorced 36 years ago. He always said he loved me and wanted to get back together one day. I finally realized he is a liar, cheater, and gaslighter. Now, at last, I do not care if he lives or dies. He is whoever wants him's problem. Story 43. When you forget everything about them, their social media, shared memories, and every detail you once knew, until you can barely even recall their name. Story 44. Just feeling like you have so much distance from them that you can actually be happy they are somewhere else, loving their life happily. Story 45. You are not friends with them or trying to stay in touch with them or trying to stay updated on what is going on in their life. Story 46. I have no feelings at all towards her anymore. I used to feel really hurt and confused, but now I am indifferent. I do not even think of her. Story 47. Not making an effort to interact with them. even when in close proximity at parties or social gatherings. Not feeling hurt or affected by their moving on. Story 48. When you stop checking their social handles, you are 80% done. When you feel either happy or pity for them, you are 100% over. Story 49. When you smile recalling the good memories and not just try to block those important years of your life, you accept the fact that it was never meant to be. You no longer hate the memories. Though you may never forgive this person for the pain they caused you, you do accept the fact that you are who you are because of that very same pain. Story 50. I think it is clear when you look back and do not remember the happy moments. It is just history, no longer evoking feelings. Story 51. Not feeling the urge or excitement to tell them about your day. Mistaken time. If you are done with your ex, move on to the next. Story 52. Not sure. Whenever I love someone, I love them for life. They live rent-free in my mind no matter how we ended, which is pretty awful. Story 53. You do not try to find out about him. You are not curious about what he is doing, whether he is in a relationship or if he is even well. He literally disappears from your mind. He is in your history. You know that he exists and has been with you, but nothing comes to mind about the person. Story 54. Last night I found out my ex from a few years ago is seeing someone I know, and I felt, well, not much. I thought it would make me feel heartbroken. This ex was someone I was with for 4 years and thought was my life partner. Only after he decided he did not want children, which was a change from what we had discussed until then, did I have to make the difficult decision to break up. We had a significant age gap. I'm younger, so I could not take the gamble of knowing that having children was not going to be an option with him while I was in my 30s. Life is difficult sometimes. But yes, he is seeing someone, and I am not nearly as heartbroken as I expected to be. So to answer your question literally, if you do not feel upset over news like that, that is a great indicator. Story 55. I saw someone who looked exactly like him in my area, and I felt nothing as I looked at him. I used to feel anxious when I saw this person before. Story 56. I had a troubling relationship with my former spouse for 15 years after we separated. One day, I said, we were not right for each other, which changed everything about the relationship. I wish I had realized that immediately instead of 15 years later. Story 57. After 6 years and several difficult periods, I was the one to end it. I was not looking or socializing with anyone in that way since I had just ended a relationship. Literally days later, I met my now wife, to whom I have been married for 14 years. Story 58. I don't even speak her name. I call her Voldemort. I don't know, though. One day, I realized I hadn't thought about that day. Then, I found someone who actually cared about me. Story 59. Honestly, being able to have a conversation with them means nothing. You don't feel upset or happy. It's almost like talking with a stranger. I spoke with my ex the other day about some financial matters we still needed to settle, and it felt so natural not to feel anything. Considering how much I love my current girlfriend, I know I'm over that part of my life. Story 60. Any tips for moving on? I have made some progress, but I still sometimes find myself thinking about them. Story 61. When you are completely indifferent to anything that may happen, there is zero impact and no concern. You can wish others well, of course, but all emotional connections are gone. Story 62. Went to block him on Instagram. Got distracted by nail polish swatch videos. Forgot what I was originally doing. Story 63. When I realized that I can peacefully coexist with other women without constant unnecessary drama, I had nothing to do with it. Story 64. I forget I even had an ex until someone asks me about my ex. Laughing out loud. Forgetting his middle name is also pretty exciting. Story 65. You do not stalk them online or in real life. You do not wish harm or evil on them. You do not think about them. You do not speak ill of them. You just live and let live. Story 66. When I created my own final closure, I was suddenly able to remember the good times we had without them being attached to all the sadness and loss. Story 67. When I became aware that there were real, actual women in my dating pool, until then women were firmly in the not wife category. The wife category overshadowed all other categories of people for so many years that it was almost existentially painful to have it exit my life. I was numb and a bit shocked, living in my parents' attic and flat broke, stuck until our joint financials resolved into separate ones. My awakening from the doldrums was pretty cool. It felt like walking out of a dimly lit room into the sunlight. Oh my, there are colors out here and lots of shiny. Within a week, I connected with my new partner. We have been a team for 20 years now. Story 68. You feel indifferent towards them. You do not care about what they are doing, you do not think about them, and if you do, it is like thinking about someone you do not know. There is no feeling attached to it. Story 69. You just stop bringing them up in a conversation, or you start laughing whenever you think about the difficulties they put you through. Story 70. For me, it was going from, I miss her to good God. Why did I even want to be around her in the first place? Once you take off the rose-colored glasses, the flags turn red again. Story 71. One day, you go to bed and realize that, for the first time, you have not thought of your former partner the entire day. Story 72. My mother keeps asking about my former wife since we separated 6 months ago. I finally realized that my mother thinks about it much more than I do. Story 73. When you see an advertisement for a pirate festival where they are featured as a mermaid, it does not make you feel sad. Story 74. When he came to me before he left and said, "You are not good enough for me. If I'm going to stay with you, you are going to have to do the following or I'm leaving." I felt the greatest sense of relief. I said, "You are right. I am not good enough for you. You need to leave me." My face said, "I'm so sorry that I am not enough for you." Inside, my heart was singing, "I'm free." He thought he would come back later and I would give him complete control of my life again. Instead, after he left, I changed the locks and felt safe and at ease for the first time in years. Story 75. You can talk positively about the good times and frankly about the bad times without having a chip on your shoulder. You can acknowledge that there were good things. That is why you dated. You can also acknowledge that there were reasons things did not work out. If you run into them at the store and have a friendly greeting, or even introduce them to your new significant other with no romantic or sexual interest, then you have moved on. Story 76. There were two guys who came into my life. Let's name them Steve and Tom. You know, there comes a point when you think about them as soon as you wake up. It has been 5 months. Steve contacted me exactly on December 31st, 2024. I did reply to him, but the last time I met him, as soon as I hugged him, I knew it was the last time we would be meeting and connecting like that again. More than Steve, I used to be in love with Tom. Tom came back, completely changed. Tom contacted me on December 31st as well. For the first time, I listened to my heart and blocked Steve because, in November, he literally ghosted me and I did the same. I felt so good. No more tears, I just felt happy. I am currently with Tom now. He is all I could ask for. I forgot Steve because Tom gave me everything Steve never could. Steve did text me in between, but I was very dry toward him. I just didn't feel like talking to him like I used to. Story 77. If you read the title of this post and she was the first thing that popped into your mind, you are not over her. Story 78. The only time you think about someone is when you realize it has been a while since you last thought about them. Story 79. You plainly do not care. I was told his new partner emptied his bank account and threw coffee in his face. I just laughed. Story 80. When the sick feeling in the pit of your stomach goes away when someone mentions them or when you see them. Story 81. I saw a video of two girls hanging out. The first girl asks the second, "Are you thinking about him?" The second girl responds, "Who?" They both became really excited and started giggling. I think that is it. Story 82. When you cannot remember her face, her name, or her smile, and think about the fact that she went on with a man 20 years older than her, consider that horror. That man is now a grandfather. Story 83. About the same as the advice I was given for potty training your children. It will be hard at first, and there will be setbacks along the way. But you know you will be done when you realize it has been a long time since you worried about potties or accidents, when it was literally all you dealt with constantly at one point. Story 84. Feeling normal around him but also laughing whenever something about him is mentioned, while thinking about another person I am interested in right now. Story 85. You come across them in thought, on social media, in person, wherever, and feel absolutely nothing. Not anger, upset, trauma, jealousy, or lingering romance. You just feel nothing. Story 86. They no longer exist in your world in any way unless someone else, for whatever reason, brings them up. Seriously, my ex could be dead right now, and I would have no idea. Story 87. When you have to go through your, I don't know, folder in your brain just to recall why you are feeling nostalgia when you come across a very familiar place. Story 88. When you reach the point where she is no longer on your mind, and even when she occasionally appears, you feel neutral towards her. No hate, no love either. Then another thought comes, and you instantly forget it. Your emotions tell you, if you feel nothing, then there is nothing. Or in the language of my fellow Reddit users, you simply do not care. Story 89. When their name appears, your heart remains calm. Perhaps a little gratitude, but no pain. Story 90. In my case, it was seeing her with her new partner. Caused no feelings whatsoever in me. I did find that she became extremely emotional when she heard I was seeing someone. Story 91. I do not know. I just do not care about her most of the time. When I think about relationships, she comes to mind. But that is about it. I do not like her. Story 92. When you can honestly say there was nothing good about them in the first place and you are happier alone, indifference is bliss. Story 93. Realizing the relationship helped you grow, and loving your ex not in a romantic way but because you are thankful for this relationship. Story 94. For me, it was the way I looked back at memories. I can see the good parts and remember how they brought me to where I am now. But they also do not linger in my mind or make me wonder what went wrong in the end. Story 95. Being tired and repulsed by the poor choices they make and the immature group they choose to surround themselves with. Story 96. When you engage in self-pleasure to images or videos of someone because you find them attractive, not because you miss them. Contemporary challenges require contemporary solutions. Story 97. Instead of resentment or any sort of negative reaction when they pop up in your head, you simply do not remember them again. If you do, it is kind of like, oh, I remember they did this once. A passive reaction. I remember telling myself time would heal, and it did, especially because they merely become a memory and experience when you respect yourself and maintain that distance. Story 98. I do not think about my former partners at all. I have no feelings towards them. I do not hate them. I do not like them. I genuinely do not care about them at all. Story 99. I moved out from my ex-wife, but I have children with her, so I still need to communicate with her. I try to be as neutral as possible. She still irritates me though, but she is not my problem anymore. Story 100. For me, it is actually dating again. I have always been the kind of guy who looks for a serious relationship, but after a breakup, I spend a lot of time single before actually starting to think about it. Last time, I spent about 3 years single until I met my current girlfriend. Before that, I was single for about 5 years. Sure, there was some casual dating here and there, but nothing serious. Story 101. The desire to reach out or talk to him has died. If he reaches out, I might entertain it just to listen to how miserable his life is. But that is about it. Story 102. You never look back, and your life is more amazing now than ever before. But it is like that sometimes. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.